All right. Now you've obviously done loads more of a lot of the other things, but we're being selective here in the
Mhm.
genre Halloween-esque and horror. And I just wanted to now ask you my typical questions that I ask everybody on my 13 Horrifically Silly Days of Halloween series, if I could. Starting with, what is your favorite horror movie of all time and why?
Um, Again, I'm not a huge
I,
horror movie guy.
Mhm.
So, I saw some movies as a teenager, like, the Friday the 13th,
Oh
those
yeah.
movies, Carrie, The
Hmm.
Exorcist, all those.
Yep.
Um, and I think for me, I mean, The Exorcist is up there for sure. Um, but I think the big one for me is The Shining.
I was gonna guess that because
Yeah.
you mentioned Kubrick, so yeah.
Yeah. Just because I think I just love that filmmaker. And I think he really creates like fearful suspense. He's kind of a master at that, and the fact that he'll do that without like, it's not like you're cutting to things to try and the manipulation, it's there, but it's so buried that you can't see it, and you're just sitting in one frame, and after a while of it not cutting and you're sitting in that frame, you want to tear your hair out and run away screaming. That's impressive to me. Like that's pretty great,
Yeah.
and it really kind of creates, it makes you sort of unpack what is scary, what is making me uncomfortable, what am I really, and the sort of like bigger moments in that movie, the here's Johnny and that kind of stuff. Uh, they're scary, but they're also slightly comical, right? Like kind of
Yeah.
like he's riding that wave, and I don't know. That to me is it's pretty ballsy that you're pushing to. You're sort of. I'm assuming you're kind of cracking a joke, and you're able to do that and go, don't worry, I'm going to make you scared again, even if you were laughing a bit. You're going to get scared again.
Yeah.
That's how in control I am of the situation. So, I give that movie props for that, and it's beautifully shot. And yeah, so I would say that one for me is a
Shiny.
big one.
All right, cool. And well, the reason I actually like horror comedy so much is I do feel like even if you're just using comic moments, well placed in a movie like The Shining, I just feel like horror and comedy, different sides, same coin. They
Mhm.
really work well together, or they can. Anyway.
They're both the when they're working, it's a very instantaneous, reactive kind of medium, right? Like comedy, it's like through the joke, laugh, right?
Right.
Hear, scream,
Yep.
right? Like
Exactly.
it's a quick bang kind of, yeah. Yeah, I
Exactly.
agree.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
particularly appealing.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have a favorite horror novel and or author?
Like I would, to me, where I'm really going to get scared is when it feels uh, it feels plausible, right?
Mm,
It feels like a world that could happen.
yeah,
Uh, that to me gives it the chance of being scary to me because now it's easy for me to kind of envision what that would mean like, and it's plausible, meaning it could happen. Therefore, it's scary.
right.
So a big one for me that kind of always sort of keeps a sort of dark, kind of scary place is 1984.
Yeah,
Um, uh, and I don't think it would classically be put in this genre, but
but still, yeah.
yeah, and like, and I feel even recently and in different parts of the world, you see the potential for that reality. Like we're not that far from that reality. So
Mhm.
uh, that one had a lot of resonance to me,
Right.
and it scared me. So I guess it fits in that genre.
It does, and it's not unlike another one of my guests named The Handmaid's Tale
That's
for
another
the
one for
same
me.
reason, you
Yeah,
know? Yeah,
yeah, that's
not a
another one.
traditional horror, but
Actually,
scary.
that was going to be the one I was going to say from a Canadian horror.
Ah, okay. Well then, then we've covered that too, the Canadian novel. All right, go Margaret Atwood. Um, Now, let me see. Do you have a favorite Canadian horror movie?
I mean, like I didn't see Ginger Snaps or
Right.
which I hear is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, but it
Um,
also borders on horror comedy there, which I love.
right.
So yeah, that's great.
Um, so for a Canadian horror movie, I don't know if this qualifies,
Okay.
but I would say The Dead Zone.
Right, shot here. Yep, in
Yeah,
Ireland
shot
Lake.
here,
Yep.
and it was Cronenberg
Yes. So
directed.
yeah, I'd say it qualifies.
Um,
I'm gonna say.
so and it's, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's pretty dated, right? There's a real 80s thing, but I kind of love it.
Yeah.
And but also you get to hang out with Christopher Walken for the duration of the movie, and that's always fun.
Yes.
Because I think, I mean, he just his natural sort of essence, I think, is super well suited for thriller and horror type movies.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so, his thing is so specific and so odd and so off center
Hmm.
that it almost, it helps bring worlds that are not mainstream. It helps make them believable because that's where he naturally sits. So
Yeah.
you put him in that world and it sort of anchors the world in a way. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
And so I kind of feel like Dead Zone is that way, you know?
Right.
Got a great cast though.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and yeah, so that would be my choice for Canadian horror movie.
Okay. Now, how about favorite horror comedies? Whether Canadian or not. I'm talking. Well, I'll take movies or books here, but I'm mostly talking movies.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so I've Shaun of the Dead, I thought
Yeah.
was,
Yes.
yeah, I thought that was pretty great. And I thought it was super smart in terms of, I mean, let's face it, the zombie genre, it's funny. Like it's a funny concept. I think it's hilarious. And so like, and I think they were the first ones to go full-blown comedy with the zombie genre, yes?
Yes, and I would say so. Yeah,
Yeah.
vaguely anyway. But yeah, no, at least in a big way, and that is mainstream enough for people to be aware of. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's any a little underground movies that happen to supersede that, but yeah, and to also make the horror makeup and gore as authentic as you would in a regular zombie movie.
Zombie movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a big fan of that, and I thought it was really well done. Again, it's like as I get older, I just really I can appreciate any kind of genre. It's basically about the execution. Like
Mhm.
when you're working within these parameters, are you are you at the top of the state of the art of those parameters, or have you broken new ground in some sort of way? Right. I thought Get Out was pretty good too.
It's horror for sure.
Horror.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, I guess it's not that much comedy in there.
No, I mean, but that's kind of satire, you could
Yeah,
definitely
I
say,
mean dark
but
horror.
not meant to be like, ha,
Yeah,
not that kind of horror comedy,
yeah,
that's for sure.
but still, there was satire for sure.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely.
and I,
Switching over to movies that aren't so great, but are kind of great because they're not. Oh, I wanted to ask you about your favorite B movie.
I mean, there's a lot of comedies could fall under B movie, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Oh,
so I would say, even though I feel like it was a big budget, but like Tropic Thunder felt like a B movie, right?
yeah. Right. Definitely a comedy for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, no, I
yeah.
love Tropic Thunder.
Or what are the Park Boys there?
Oh, yeah. Um,
Like Team America, which is
Yes, but their
um,
previous movies too, they did some really low budget stuff
yeah,
and definite B movie gold, I
yeah.
would say.
I mean, some of the Werner Herzog movies,
Mhm. Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
Kaczynski,
Yeah.
uh, those are pretty amazing in the
Mhm.
sense that they're so like arch and over the top and but they're kind of crazy. And Klaus Kinski, I think, was certifiably crazy. So those movies like Nosferatu and stuff, those I think are pretty great because it's just he does these close-ups on Klaus Kinski, and Klaus Kinski is like eating the furniture. It's so huge what he's doing, but the look in his eyes is truly like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So you, it's so compelling, right? He just captures the image.
Yeah.
There's actually, if you're interested in B movies, a great documentary,
Oh,
and
yes.
it's not about B movies per se, but Werner Herzog made a documentary about his relationship to Klaus Kinski.
Okay.
It's
Called.
called My Best Fiend, and he basically goes to all the different places where he shot all these movies,
Right.
Nosferatu being one of them,
Mhm.
which is a vampire movie, and interviews people, and they recount stories of Klaus Kinski. It's amazing. That's in my top 10 favorite movies ever. This documentary. It's amazing and hilarious. And Klaus Kinski was a madman. I think they kind of both were, really. I mean, it was a relationship they nurtured together, but super.
So, my last question, but not least, what is your Halloween ritual? Now, that may be like what you used to do for Halloween versus now, because now is COVID and a little bit different. Or if you're just talking about like childhood Halloween for you, I just wanted, because this is getting close to Halloween by the time this airs,
Yeah.
got to talk about that.
So I guess the ritual, meaning this is something you do every year. So
Yep.
the pumpkin is definitely a ritual, and I used to carve the pumpkin, and now my kids carve a pumpkin,
Cool.
and we usually now the pumpkins are, I mean, with all the tools and stuff you have, and all the examples that you can find online, the pumpkin game in general for us, and I kind of feel everywhere, is definitely gone up a bunch of notches.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Some really artistic stuff.
yeah, it's amazing. And social commentary with the pumpkins and, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. And so pumpkin, I would say, is a ritual.
Mhm.
And the candy, where we live right now, we used to have a home that we could what we tried to do is create for the kids to get to the door to
Okay.
get the candy. There was things that they had to go through. This wasn't going to be a freebie.
Yeah.
You weren't
Gauntlet.
just going to walk up the door and get your candy and walk away. There was, so there was things, and it was kind of scary, and we'd set up things that they kind of go through, and sounds, and even the opening of the door. And this started, I remember my mom did this. I grew up in Montreal, and we had set up our speakers to the windows that were facing the outside of the house,
Mhm.
and there was all these sort of like screaming sounds that we had found on this record that we were sort of playing. Um, and we had a little amplifier with a mic, and we were doing distorted sounds in the mic. And our house was all dark, but we had pumpkins lit, and we had sort of an ante room. So like a little foyer. So you open the
Yeah.
first door, and there was a little sort of closet here where you put your coats, and then there was a second door that went into the house.
Right.
And so uh, I would open the door, and the kids were there, but they're already a little creeped out, and they go, trick or treat. And so I would open the door, I'd go, yeah, come in. And I'd reach for the candy, and then my mom would come out of the closet, like all like mangled. Like it was a terrible idea. Like it was traumatizing kids. Like they were freaking out. It was brutal. It was terrible. It was a bad thing to do. And so, but then when I got older and had kids, I thought, oh, I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't learn from the mistakes at all, and I was just like, there's a new generation of kids that need to be traumatized.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
what Halloween's for,
yeah,
partly, candy and trauma.
yeah,
Whether you're watching a horror movie that traumatizes you or you're getting scared on Halloween by somebody jumping out of a closet at you and,
yeah.
causing a
Exactly.
jump scare.
There should be more horror theater.
Horror theater? Oh, you mean like live theater?
Yeah.
Yes, there should. And horror comedy, because yeah.
There is, I guess, those things when you kind of move through
Yeah,
spaces,
haunted
like
houses that are,
horror and
yeah,
haunted.
and there are actors that,
Yeah.
jump scare you. But yeah, I think horror theater stories too, though, actually on stage. There could be
Mhm.
more of that. There is a little bit, and especially musicals with Evil Dead the musical,
Right.
and stuff like that that have come out that are pretty awesome. Um, but yeah, can always do with more. And actual genuine horror too, not just horror comedy, because we're, doing gory musical musical on stage for you, so that's naturally going to be funny.
Yeah.
But a real actual horror on stage would be good too, I guess, which the Phantom of the Opera and things like that are supposed to be. But let's
I guess
take out
so.
the
Huh? I
music.
never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, take the music out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The Lion King, that's pretty
that
horrible.
is
Yeah.
traumatizing in a
Yeah.
whole other
Yeah.
way. Bambi,
Yeah.
if you put Bambi
Yeah.
on stage, no.
I know.
Mom.
I mean, honestly, like when I think of movies that really affected me and kind of traumatized me, Bambi, I would think is probably big for a lot of people.
It
Like
is, it is. Oh,
you're pretty young when the mom gets killed. Like you're a
yeah.
young
Oh, my
audience
mom
that's
got shot. Oh,
traumatizing. Yeah.
and she's this beautiful doe, and
Yeah.
even this beautiful little fawn behind, and like, yeah, that's its own kind of
That's a big thing. I mean, it depends the kind of horror you're doing, but there is value in uh, if you can get the audience really invested in the characters and attached to the characters and care for the characters, then you can be a lot more effective with your horror,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
yeah, we care more.
Yeah, I think that's why my mom and now I find The Exorcist particularly effective. Is we do like the characters so much in
Yeah,
it. We care what happens to them, and such horrible, horrible things happen. So
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they invest the time to develop them,
yes.
which is the key, you know.
Like a regular movie, like you would do with any other movie, which you should
Mhm.
do with all movies. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Noam. It's been
You're welcome.
great chatting with you.
Yeah, super fun chatting with you. I hope the Halloween podcast goes great.
Thank you so much.